Hey, welcome to the Virtually Speaking podcast. We are continuing our coverage of VCF 9. And John, we're talking about VCF, not for just one person or two people, but for all, John. It's VCF for all.
You know, I like to think that this is a platform that, you know, it's got a lot of capabilities. And sometimes when you look at this, you're like, wow, there's a lot going on here. Like, is this just for the people, you know, with spinning rims and fancy cars and things? But what about the little guy?
Yeah. Well, listen, we had a great conversation with our good friend James LeFort, and he's here to tell us all about why VCF is for all. James, welcome back.
Thanks. Been a while. Haven't seen you guys in a bit.
Yeah.
I talk with customers every day. Been with the company 14 years now, and there was always this misperception out there that VCF was a solution that was just destined for the Fortune 10, the Fortune 50, right? Oh, that's out of my league. I don't have the workloads. I don't have the bandwidth to adopt such a complex solution. And we're going to try and dispel that myth today.
Yeah.
Right? So if we look at the overall spectrum of accounts, I truly believe that outside of that pinnacle of multinational global accounts, there's intrinsic value in VCF 9 as a prime example with a new delivery of the platform approach that every customer, large or small, can find intrinsic value and benefits to suit their needs. Whether you're in a high-tech firm, whether you're in a financial services firm, whether you're in a mom and pop's tackle shop firm, there's always goodness there to be had.
Why the platform? Why does that make a difference?
In the past, some of the customer comments back was VCF in the earlier days looked more like a patchwork quilt. It was a conglomeration of networking, storage solutions, vSphere for compute, and it behaved as such. It was unfortunately dubbed as a bit complex, hard to adopt, and not ready for the broad scale of customers. With the introduction of VCF 9 and our delivery now as a true platform approach, customers are seeing this more as a platform, almost like they saw vSphere years ago. Like, build the platform and they will come. So they're seeing this now more as an overall baseline that they can build atop with their container apps, where we're making containers first-class citizens again, where they could build upon with AI solutions that one of my colleagues talked about earlier in the week. And they can just build upon this as opposed to say, what works with networking, what works with storage? How do I piece all these things together and have the single platform with compatibility and knowing that all this is just going to work together to provide them with the value that they need?
Well, and this is interesting because I'm old enough to remember things like enterprise hybrid cloud, where not to throw shade or anything, but like just going through the history of like the whole promise of I'm going to buy a box and it's going to be a cloud thing and it'll do cloud stuff. And like you go back to the early days of, you know, moving down this direction, it was often like, here's a bunch of components and we're going to have like, you know, a 6-figure PSO bill and a school bus full of, you know, professional service people to try to like just get the thing installed and all the components integrated, and oh, you need to upgrade it. 2 people are going to come live in my data center for a week for some reason, like, and ignore my change control windows. Like, how have we come from that?
Well, and even past that, if I go back the history trail with you as well, John, right? Even once we get past deployment, then we had all of these components on different release streams. So then a customer was kind of scratching their head, okay, well, I adopted this version of networking. I'm running back on this version of vSphere. What works together, what doesn't, and it became a compatibility mess, which just added to the inherent perception of complexity. So now that we have a single platform approach, we truly have a solution that's being delivered across network, compute, storage, automation, operations that can bring that level of visibility to the customers, and they don't have to worry about all that messy stuff in the background.
So, you know, let's say, you know, I'm running a virtualization environment, and, you know, one thing about those larger fancy shops, they might have 12 different teams who hover these 12 different silos, but I've got a small integrated team who's working on this. What are some of the better things in terms of adoption for me getting, you know, to that day, from that day 0 to that day 1 experience?
So a couple of things, right? And you raise a good point. If I may, I'll talk a bit about use cases. Yeah. So 5 years ago, let's say 5 just as a rough point of reference, 5 years ago was cloud first. Right? Every customer, large and small, was cloud-first approach. Yes. And they were moving workloads to the public cloud. Yep. And then for whatever reason, whether it be cost, complexity, refactoring, it wasn't really working all that well for them. Not for everybody. Right? There's always going to be certain workloads that are great for the cloud, for the public cloud. Others are just destined to be on-prem. So one of the new approaches we're seeing, rather than do a cloud-first approach, the new buzzword out there for my customers is more a cloud smart approach. You may have some workloads that are better suited on premises whether it be for security reasons, compliance reasons, governance reasons, that you don't want that data in the public cloud. So we're now seeing a different approach where 5 years ago, all of this stuff moved into a public cloud, and now repatriation is becoming a very new and hot solution and use case. And to do that, customers are looking for the ease, the agility, and the momentum, both from the developer container side and from the traditional workload side, that they would get from a hyperscaler type cloud approach on premises that they can manage themselves. And that's where we get the benefits of treating true platform approach of VCF and 9.0, right? They can get the scale, they can get the agility, they can get the ease of use of a cloud provider, and essentially they're becoming their own cloud providers on premises.
Okay, that is fancy. So you work with a lot of different customers out there.
Big and small.
Big and small, yeah. So what has been the feedback? Have you had anybody that's been early adopters? Anyone working with VCF?
So great question. And some of the feedback that we're getting across the board is they're now seeing, again, VCF as that platform of choice, right? They're becoming their own consumers and their own manager of their own cloud, and they're getting the value that they can out of their own needs. So they're adopting, again, like I said, VCF as a platform. Like back in the day, vSphere was the hyperscaler. VCF is now the platform of choice, and they're building upon it. And then there's different solutions that our customers are asking about, right? So there's VCF where we can have one management domain, multiple workload domains. Each workload domain is for a different functionality. Then we have other customers in certain space who are like, look, I'm a very small shop. I have a 5-person IT department, and with the automation, the capabilities with respect to compatibility, we can give them their weekends back. And they're not planning to get all that compatibility back with what works with what, where are my download patches, who's doing all this integration ahead of time to make sure that it's going to work and doesn't break in production, right? We're taking all that off their shoulders so they're not spending every weekend in patch management.
I just remember trying to be like, okay, I'm going to update this VDI environment. And it's like, okay, do I do vCenter, vSphere, okay, I've got all these other components, I've got ops, I've got login side, I've got networking, like, I would just print out all the documentation, just like sit there and look at the star chart of like which goes which way and, trying to map that path. And it was, I guess, not terribly fun to go through that.
Not terribly fun is an understatement. And then if we look at some of the other customers that I have, they may not want or have the capital budget to go out and invest in their own data center solution. Right? So they may not want to own their own hardware of having servers on site for the management domain and having servers on site for the workload domains, or even renting in a colo, right? So now that we have the advancements in VCF where BYOL, or bring your own license, they can acquire a license and basically run it anywhere, right? They can work with some of our cloud service providers, they could work with a hyperscaler, and they could either run it in one of the cloud providers, still get all the same goodness and value of VCF on premises, but they don't have to own the hardware at that point.
No, get access to that. And yeah, if you're in manufacturing, you may not want capital in your books for financial shenanigan reasons, or you may have a situation where for compliance reasons, I have to have a data center in Germany, but nein sprechen Sie Deutsch. So find a CSP in that area. There's a lot of different reasons but it's nice they've got that flexibility.
And then if you really want to go out on a limb, you could actually get some of these CSPs to actually provide you the managed service, where basically the set it and forget it, you're going to deliver to my business based on a service level agreement, and then
I take my vCenter as a dial tone, but they're managing the life cycle.
Exactly, and then that way you've truly freed up your IT department to work on the next important project from the CIO.
Why would somebody do that versus public cloud?
A little bit of control, a little bit, the managed service is going to give it directly to you from a needs of your own business. They'll work with you on exactly the service level agreements and the managed service towards your business, as opposed to uploading into one of our respected public cloud hyperscalers, but it's more on a managed service basis.
Yeah, the nines are what they are in the hyperscale. It's like, this is what we deliver. This is our service. Like, oh, I want half a pizza. No, you don't get half a pizza here.
Right? You get 2 pizzas.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, you said something at the top of the conversation about containers being first-class citizens. What did you mean by that?
The perception that the developer community was separate and distinct, and they do speak a different language.
Yeah, John says the DevOps hipsters.
Oh, cool.
You just gotta get out your translation wheel. It's like, okay, DRS, resource group, that's just a namespace, and storage class is
and part of the challenge is bridging the gap between the infrastructure admins, the infrastructure advocates, and the DevOps team. And at the end of the day, they're all speaking the same language, just using different words. So part of what we're doing as an SE team, SA team, we're going in with decoder rings and helping them understand each other.
How the VPC can work with
Precisely.
CNI interfaces.
But the goodness behind this, even though we're speaking a different language, that's the underlying technology is the same with VCF, right? We treat a container just like the same way we would treat a VM with respect to vMotion, with respect to all of the attributes we can give a VM, we would treat a container just the same way. And when you put it into that frame of reference to the DevOps team, they get it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a language that they've not always been accustomed to because they've always been in their own little DevOps world.
Well, and I think some of those groups, they initially thought like, oh, I want my own little silo and my own little servers, my own little kingdom. And they're like, wait, lifecycle and compliance is hard. Why am I doing this? Why am I managing metal? Like, think this is someone else's problem again.
And why are you hiding a server under your desk for certain workloads, right? You see the electricity spike under one person's desk in that department.
I think I walked past one of those earlier in Prom B. I was like, why are there 8 servers in this office? And there's a sign that says, "Do not shut the door." Like, what are the devs up to?
And the temperature is like 5 degrees higher when you walk in that cubicle.
Yeah.
So no, the goal is to standardize across a common platform. That platform being VCF, and then everything, the newness coming with VCF 9.
Yeah, no. You said, so you were talking about cloud service providers. Is that, do you work with a lot of cloud service providers in your field?
Particularly where we do have those customers that want to have the set it and forget it approach, or the new bring your own license approach, right? They see the value and they see everything that they can gain out of VCF as a platform, but either they don't want to invest in the capital, they want to move capital into operational budget, or they just need someone else to manage it for them.
I feel like that kind of sums up the title of this episode being like VCF for all. I mean,
there's a path for everyone.
There is a path for everyone.
So let's talk about that path. Like, let's say I've got my 100 VMs or my 200 VMs here, and I'm like, okay, well, I'd like these advanced services and stuff. This sounds great. What are my next steps? Who should I engage with? Who should I work with? How do I get there?
For us, we always engage with the sales teams first, obviously. The sales teams will then working with the solutions architects, my team of specialists across the board, to look at what are the requirements of your workloads, right? Understand your business, which is something a little bit different than what we used to do in the past, which is here's a solution, how can you use it? We're now working very tightly with the customers on a partnership level to what are your business requirements? What are the problems you're trying to solve? And how can we make those solutions translate into outcomes, right? And that based on those workshops, those conversations, we would fine-tune an architectural approach based on budget, based on need, based on outcome, based on preferences. Would this be a on-premises solution? Would this be an edge type solution? Would this be a co-location solution? Would this be a cloud service provider solution, right? The good news is based on customer requirement, large or small, industry specific or not, there's always going to be, like my grandma used to say, a cover for every pot, right? So based on the need, we now can go with scalpel approach and say, we recommend this, and this is how we'll work with you to get to the VCF outcome of your choice to meet your requirements.
Figure out the phase of those components. Because, if you're a small team with only so much time, you may not be ready for, maybe, okay, I've got a storage refresh, so let's do the storage bit as part of the initial, but the networking's the day where we're going, or ops, we need automation now, or wherever that is.
And if you look at what some of the business unit or the division has provided, right? We're really trying to make every customer and the ecosystem experts in VCF, right? What we've done where we've opened up the education services, right? And we provided all this VCF education now to all of our customers. In the past, those classes were $5,000 per person per seat per class. And now we've opened all that up so anyone out there, customer again, big or small, can become a VCF expert. Right? And
truly making it for all.
It helps them help themselves, which kind of aligns back to my title.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well, this has been a great summary, man. I appreciate you so much, as always, on Virtually Speaking. Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thanks, my friends.